So 3 reasons why you need to look beyond chemistry in a partner. Number one is we tend to bond with people who have things in common with us. And we tend to have a lot of chemistry with people who have things in common with us. This also includes trauma. So if you come from a rough childhood, if you come from a background of being bullied, if you come from a history of abuse, then you are going to end up bonding with a potential partner who also has those similar backgrounds. And while that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because, assuming that the person has healed and they are actively working on growing beyond that, that could be a good thing, someone who can relate to your struggles. The problem with that is that sometimes women have the tendency to have gone through trauma, they've gone through issues, and they haven't healed from those things. So they attract partners who also have not healed from those things. This is where you end up in a situation where you're in a relationship with someone, you feel like you truly love them, but what's really happened is the two of you are bonded over shared trauma that neither of you have healed. And because neither of you have healed from this trauma, neither of you are really ready to be in a relationship. Because the fact is, hurt people will always hurt people. So then you end up in a relationship with someone who has been hurt in the past, someone who comes from a rough background, whatever type of trauma we're referring to. And this person, because they have not adequately dealt with their issues, they end up hurting you. So you end up leaving this relationship more wounded than the way you came into it. The other reason why chemistry shouldn't be the only thing that you look at is sometimes people fake chemistry. Back to this whole idea of people bonding over things that they have in common. I see this happen way too often, that a woman meets a man, she's very excited about him, she is sure that, there's just something, there's a spark there, that they're going to be a great match, and she ends up telling everything, and the man just basically molds himself into what it is that she wants. So the woman says things like, oh, church is really important to me. I only want a man who's Christian. And the guy's like, okay, yeah, sure. And for the first 3 months of the relationship, he goes to church every single Sunday. She says something like, I don't want to have sex until I have a really deep connection with someone. So the guy has been given this game plan. Okay, she needs really deep connection. So I'm just going to ask her a bunch of questions. I'm going to ask her everything about her. I'm really going to ever talk about myself. I'm just her, and she's going to feel like, because she's constantly talking and she's constantly delving into these deep issues, and I'm just here like listening, that we form some type of connection, and then the man gets what he wants and he leaves. And you don't talk to a man about your wants and your needs and your boundaries, but you do have to remember that it's not just chemistry, it's not just what a person says, but it's also in their actions as well. That whole example of a man going to church. You say that that's something important to you, and anyone can fake a couple of months. What they can't fake is whether or not they really and truly have a spiritual relationship. Once you get to know someone, you know whether or not they have a relationship with God. It comes up in their conversations. It comes up in their minutes. You see them maybe tithe at church. You see them praying, or if you look at their phone, you see that one of the podcasts they listen to is a church, a preacher, or that they watch certain programming. So just having chemistry based on compatibility is not enough in a relationship. And then, excuse me, guys, that I want you to think about when it comes to chemistry is that chemistry. So this whole concept of romantic love, over heels type of love that we see in Hollywood and in the movies and everything, hate to break it to you, but typically it only lasts about 2 to 3 years. After that, that type of love starts to fade. Hey, Robbie. And by the way, if anybody else is watching me right now, I can't see unless you comment. So, hey to everyone who's watching me, but just know, unless you comment, I can't see your name. But back to what I was saying. You know, the romantic love that we see in movies typically only lasts 2 to 3 years. So, with that being said, what happens is after that, a couple that is still loving each other, and note I said loving each other, not in love, they move into called compassionate love. And that compassionate love is the love of caring, the love that allows you to form a family. That's the type of love that we see with, you know, the couples who they're both in their 90s or they're 100 and they're still holding hands in the nursing home. So after, you know, romantic love fades, you move into another type of love that is still amazing, but it is not filled with this chemistry that makes people fall head over heels. So, what does this mean for you practically when you are out here dating? It means that yes, you most certainly should be looking for chemistry when it comes to a partner because you want someone who lights you up. You want someone who gives you that spark. At the same time, you also need to use some common sense and some discernment. So this means, first of all, maybe not telling all of your business, actually, most definitely not telling all of your business. If you allow yourself to get too vulnerable, there is a right way to be vulnerable. There is a balance, and you know that's something I work with my clients on. But when it comes to oversharing, once you get into that part, you end up, you know, creating a situation where you can be taken advantage of because someone can take every single thing that you said and just use it to fake chemistry. You also end up in a situation where you're more vulnerable to that type of trauma bonding. It's not necessarily a matter of the person wants to hurt you, but again, because hurt people, if you attract someone from your place of hurt and they're also working on their hurt, then you will end up being more wounded. So, once again, 3 reasons why you need to look beyond chemistry when it comes to dating. Number 1, you can fall susceptible to trauma bonding. 2, you end up it all just uses that as a playbook to get to your heartstrings. And number 3, chemistry, the type of head over heels chemistry that we think of, is fleeting.